Finding courage, Dorothy blew the very candle that created the Candlemaker, defeating him. And that is how a legendary supervillain, Candlemaker, lost in front of the infamous Unlikely Heroes, the Doom Patrol. Written by Grant Morrison in the late 1960s, Doom Patrol brought a revolution in not just comics and imagination, but creating a new stereotype: the lauded and fabled heroes with a traumatic past. Each member of the team had been brought together by Niles, the chief, who was a brilliant mind and scientist. In this video, we take a journey into the world of Doom Patrol and explore the extremely perplexing antagonistic force that made them and broke them multiple times: the Candlemaker. His persistent and prodding presence in Dorothy's unconscious kept us intrigued through both the comics and live-action adaptation. However, this brings us to several questions about him. Where does he come from? Why does he stay with Dorothy for a very long time? Was he villainous always? Or was being with Dorothy a cause that led to a rise in his antagonism? Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Blow the candle, make a wish, Candlemaker's origin. Dorothy Spinner, one of the youngest members of Doom Patrol, has a unique skill which is bringing imaginary creatures to life at will. As we all know, Dorothy Spinner had a tragic childhood. She was bullied, especially for her facial deformity. Her mother, Slava, was a metahuman who could bring the monsters in her thoughts to life. When Dorothy was born, Slava sensed the presence of a dark entity, which you can guess was none other than the Candlemaker. Understanding this, Slava protected Dorothy as much as she could and hid Dorothy in Danny the Street for many years. Slava was also the former lover of Niles, the chief of Doom Patrol, making Dorothy his daughter. Niles searched for his daughter with the help of the Bureau of Normalcy, and after years passed by, rescued her too. Candlemaker was an egregore, meaning that he had no presence in the physical realm and was banished aeons ago from reality. His presence only remained in the astral plane, but he desired to be in the form of a body by entering the physical realm. Some fans believe he was created by unconscious tensions revolving around historical crisis moments, especially the possible war in the 20th century of World War III and nuclear bombs. Candlemaker was in constant search of making his way back into the physical realm through different mediums. He tried many things before he finally met Dorothy. He found the perfect opportunity to escape the unconscious and come back to life. The Candlemaker entered the subconscious of Dorothy, but did not anticipate the strength she possessed. He was trapped in her subconscious and tried to find a way out. There were only two ways he could escape Dorothy's subconscious. Either he could gain enough power to break her mind and gain power by granting her wishes, or he could wait until Dorothy turned into a woman, by which he would also grow as he was part of her. Either way, Candlemaker tried all he could to break Dorothy throughout her journey. In the comic issue 44, Dorothy was bullied by a lot of boys who scared her, teased her, harmed her, and compared her to a scarecrow. Though it sounds very childish, it was anything but. Bernard Muller, one of her main bullies, was constantly behind her, trying to remind her about how she would be the ugliest person on the planet. One time, he went overboard, creating an insane amount of rage within Dorothy. She walked home and constantly chanted, "I want him dead. I want Bernard dead." Her chants led her to a dark, cold, and candlelit place in her mind where Candlemaker awaited her and granted her 3 wishes. Dorothy asked for Bernard's death and, as instructed, blew a candle. The very next day, Bernard was found dead, hanging by a tree, crucified and disemboweled. Dorothy was perplexed and afraid, causing her to lock Candlemaker in her mind and never let Candlemaker back, which frustrated him to no end. This incident, however, set off a series of events that continued throughout the story. Finally, when Doom Patrol team members were about to die by the telephone avatar and men from nowhere, Dorothy was persuaded by Candlemaker, and finding no way out, she made her second wish in the same dark place, blowing a candle and wishing for the death of telephone avatar. The telephone avatar died in the same way, crucified by Candlemaker. This led to more power within Candlemaker. Part of his power came from all who believed in him, and the more he manifested, the higher the belief of people became. A good example would be Boogeyman, who was of course made much later. His core existence was dependent on the belief of others. Dorothy pledged to not use Candlemaker again. She was convinced that Candlemaker would never appear again, as she had all that she wished for. Until her closest friend in Doom Patrol, Joshua Clay, was killed, and surprise, he was killed by none other than the chief, Niles. Niles later revealed to Cliff that he had engineered everything in the life of each Doom Patrol member, and each was his experiment to gain immortality and change the phase of this world through nanotechnology and nanomachines. Niles was soon murdered by the Candlemaker, and Cliff's brain was squished by him as well, though Cliff survived this attack. That was when Candlemaker convinced Dorothy to make her final wish, which was to bring Joshua back to life. Candlemaker did so, but he also broke free from her mind and threatened to kill her when he was completely manifested and powerful enough. He then proceeded to kill Joshua again and left the laboratory soon after, creating havoc that would soon break Doom Patrol. Candlemaker's comical fate. Dorothy, Cliff, who was then without a brain, and Kipling were together, trying to stop the Candlemaker, but Candlemaker was indestructible. When the Candlemaker started harming innocents in Danny the Street, Cliff separated himself from Dorothy and Kipling to protect Dorothy and prevent further killing. When Cliff was face to face with the Candlemaker, he understood who could kill him. Will Magnus could, who understood nanotechnology much like Niles did. He proceeded to stall the Candlemaker, but Larry ended up coming in between them, resulting in his death. Candlemaker then followed Cliff, who had lost his legs. Kipling and Dorothy, who had left and hid together, helped Cliff. Kipling died soon, partly because of the fatal blow of the Candlemaker on his arm, but they successfully reached Will's laboratory. Will Magnus tried to understand what could stop the Candlemaker, while Cliff and Dorothy tried stalling the Candlemaker along with Tungsten, Will's robot. Dorothy finally understood that Candlemaker was born because of her fear of the dark and was a combination of a thought, which was how candles made the darkness go away, until she realized that candles were brought when someone died, leading to the existence of the Candlemaker. She stopped Candlemaker by blowing a candle and getting over her fear of darkness, concluding Candlemaker's physical presence, though he continued to stay in her subconscious. That concluded the presence of Candlemaker in the comic series. Candlemaker goes live. In the live-action series, Candlemaker gets out of Dorothy Spinner's imagination and becomes the main antagonist in Season 2. The Candlemaker convinces her to make all the wishes to free herself when she's captured in Danny the Street. However, as Dorothy becomes a teenager, Candlemaker becomes more powerful and harder to handle. Candlemaker tries convincing Dorothy on multiple occasions in 1927 when Dorothy is hurt that her imaginary friends are punished. In this series, she makes one of the Candlemaker's wishes, resulting in everyone but her and her father's death. This is in a circus where she's made fun of for being the ape-faced girl. She swears to never make a wish again, but there are multiple opportunities where Candlemaker makes his dark looming presence extremely prominent in Dorothy's subconscious, pleading her to make wishes. For instance, when she sees a mother rat eating its runt baby, Dorothy is filled with a sense of protection for the baby. Candlemaker pursues her, but Dorothy controls herself. Candlemaker manipulates Dorothy that her father is dying, but her father brings her back and reminds her that all they need to do is sleep. However, Dorothy pranks Crazy Jane and the other members once. This prank goes terribly wrong, with Dorothy ending up trapped in the Doom Manor's furnace by Baby Doll, one of Crazy Jane's 64 personalities. The Candlemaker doesn't miss this opportunity and finally convinces Dorothy to make a wish and kill Baby Doll. In anger, Dorothy blows the candle to summon him. Delighted by this opportunity, the Candlemaker visits the underground of Crazy Jane, basically a place where each of her 64 personalities live, and starts searching for Baby Doll. He is met by resistance from many, including Hammerhead, Flaming Katie, and Lucy Fugue. Crazy Jane tries protecting Baby Doll by keeping her at the far end of the underground, the Playpen Station. Despite all attempts by each of her personalities, Candlemaker finds Baby Doll. Flaming Katie tries protecting her, but is murdered by him. He then proceeds to kill Baby Doll by tearing her chest open. After this incident, Dorothy leaves the Doom Manor and takes a rocket to Pioneers of the Uncharted, landing on the moon. Candlemaker doesn't stay calm after this. He starts manipulating her and blaming her for the underground massacre. Meanwhile, just after Dorothy has taken the rocket, Niles, the chief of Doom Patrol, has a vision about Candlemaker, saying how Dorothy had to survive alone, and Candlemaker took advantage of this fact in the absence of Slava, her mother. As we know, Slava, Dorothy's mother, was the former lover of Niles Calder. Niles now understands that the Candlemaker will soon be released and cause havoc, and it's clear that he needs to be prepared for this. Niles now spends time with Dorothy as a father and daughter before she is sent to be with Kipling. This is when Slava releases the Candlemaker and he confronts Dorothy. Note that Slava here is different than the one in the comics. Anyway, coming back, Niles falls to the ground coughing. When Kipling lifts him up, they find wax in his coat, realizing that Candlemaker is free and Dorothy is unsafe. Dorothy is shocked since she never made the last wish. Candlemaker reminds her that when she grows, he grows too, and she doesn't have to, as it is time he fulfills their destiny. In this adaptation, Candlemaker celebrates by waxing everything. Kipling, who tries to protect Dorothy, comes in between the two, but he is left badly injured by Candlemaker. After Doom Patrol gets to know of this, the team teleports to the fair to rescue Niles and Dorothy. Candlemaker is still trying to get Dorothy to confront him and face him. When the team arrives, Kipling informs them that the Candlemaker can call all their imaginary friends. Kipling faces his own imaginary friend, the clown, who drags Kipling away. After this, the Doom Patrol teams up to find Niles and Dorothy faster. When Miranda, one of the former dominant personalities of Crazy Jane gets in trouble in the underground, Candlemaker waxes her with ease. Soon after Kipling fights one of his imaginary friends, Kipling is waxed by the Candlemaker as well. Larry doesn't have any imaginary friends, so Candlemaker scares him with his demonic eyes, making Larry fall and finally turn into wax. Candlemaker now summons other imaginary friends, Dr. Cowboy, which is Vic's friend, Jesus Christ, which is Cliff's, and Mademoiselle Roxy, which is Rita's imaginary friend. Dorothy watches her friends fight off their imaginary friends as the Candlemaker approaches her with ease. Dorothy watches the angry Candlemaker, who claims to want friendship, turn all her friends to wax. Dorothy walks away from there and learns that Slava has released the Candlemaker. Slava warns her that she has only two options: to be a girl or to become a woman. Dorothy returns back and finds Niles ready to fulfill her destiny. Exploring Candlemaker's not-so-secretive powers, Candlemaker has a slightly different set of strengths in the comic and live adaptation series. For instance, he waxes everything in the adaptation to showcase his strength, which could be more difficult when it comes to live TVs. Whereas when it comes to the comics, he is known for his telepathic strength and wish fulfillment history, which, as we know, starts by granting 3 wishes to Dorothy Spinner. Each wish makes him stronger, along with Dorothy's age. As we already addressed, his strengths are amplified in the live-action adaptation, but in the comics, there is no history of him having power over imaginary friends. However, he does have superhuman strength and durability after releasing out of Dorothy's consciousness. He is also known for his friend of melting objects around him like wax. He turns his victims into frozen wax sculptures. His only known limitation was when he was bound to Dorothy, making him trapped in her consciousness. This makes the Candlemaker invulnerable to any form of threat. Some fans also believe that he is terrific and has telekinetic powers, as he enters Crazy Jane's mind and the underground with ease and destroys 2 of her personalities, Baby Doll and Flaming Katie. Marvelous verdict. The Candlemaker is a fascinating being in the bizarre world of Doom Patrol, where the bizarre has become quite ordinary. This challenging antagonist, fabricated by Dorothy Spinner, is an example of how trauma, creativity, and the supernatural interact. The Doom Patrol comics written by Grant Morrison created the trend of stereotypes by featuring heroes with ominous pasts. The Candlemaker discovered a vessel while looking for a way to return to the physical world in Dorothy Spinner. The Candlemaker's unrelenting pursuit was made possible by her tragic upbringing and a special talent for creating fictional creatures. Being imprisoned in Dorothy's mind, he persisted in nudging and tempting her to create wishes that would give him power and finally release. The Candlemaker is the ideal counterpoint to Doom Patrol's gloomy and profound tales. His roots are linked to Dorothy's unhappy background in the comics, and when she is in danger, her desires are dashed. Her power increases as she battles the evil inside of her, confronts her anxieties, and makes difficult choices. The Candlemaker is made considerably scary in the live-action adaptation by waxing everyone and everything around her. His ability to penetrate the depths of the mind demonstrates the complexity of his persona in all contexts. This character is the perfect entity to conclude that. Keep watching your back, because you never know what might be waiting in the shadows. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.